There's, language that doesn't develop because we are not implementing the serve and return that can sometimes come with, not being a part of the screen time and having that adult interaction. So yes, there's a lot that goes into understanding screens and being able to implement them in a way that is a lot more healthy. It is totally possible, but there are sometimes implications that come with implementing them before the age of 18 months.
Legacy Foundation is Lake County's community foundation. For over 30 years, we've partnered with donors and nonprofits, focusing on youth development, the arts, the environment, health, literacy, and other causes that matter to you. We're committed to Lake County forever. First Things First Porter County is dedicated to supporting families, healthy beginnings, and quality early learning, ensuring every Porter County baby is born prepared for a strong start in life. Learn more at firstthingspc.org.
I have a very strong connection to other students. Everyone makes an effort to help each other. I'll remember the feeling of being here, the feeling that I was a part of a family.
Additional support for Building Blocks is provided generously by Tom Sorlis and Sue Eleuterio, as well as Porter County Community Foundation, serving Porter County since 1996.
Building Blocks, the podcast, is a co-production of Lakeshore Public Media and First Things First Porter County. For more information on Building Blocks, including this podcast, as well as the television show, visit lakeshorepublicmedia.org/buildingblocks.
Hi. Today we're welcoming Dr. Amber Brooks. She's the Division Vice President for Operations at Bright Horizons. We're going to be talking about all things but the first 1,000 days, 0 to 3-year-olds, childcare, and importantly, the impact of screen time on little brains. So, Amber, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much
welcome
for
to
having
Building
me.
Blocks.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about how you landed up at Bright Horizons.
Sure. So as most of our families do, I came to Bright Horizons and early childhood education in general as a parent, a really concerned parent who had a beautiful little boy who I was really looking to make sure that I was socializing, making sure that he was getting everything that he needed to help him to be able to grow up and be a successful adult, and learn so much about early childhood education and absolutely fell in love with the field. So really excited to be with Bright Horizons, which is an amazing child care provider that nurtures not just the whole child, but the entire family. We have services for the entire family. And again, came as a caring parent, and I'm here still as a caring parent that wants to be able to provide services and resources for other parents like me.
And wrapping your arms around the entire family. We know
Absolutely.
that that's really the most effective way to build those strong brains, to really strengthen the family ecosystem.
Yep, absolutely.
Tell us about how Bright Horizons does some of those things.
So there's so many different resources that we have. So first and foremost, we have our amazing early childhood education programs. These are just programs that are from ages 0 to 5 years old, where children are able to come and get a full day of learning experience, hands-on, activities, be with caring adults that really do want to nurture their growth and their learning. We have those things. We also have parent programs. We have an amazing another podcast called Teach, Play, Love that really does help with parents and really does touch on a lot of the topics that parents might find, that they need some support with. We have parent programs that are in our centers as well. We have pet care. We have elder care. We have so many different services. We like to think of Bright Horizons as an organization that really does nurture babies all the way up and through adulthood. So many different services that we provide. But my specific field is the early childhood education field, which I can talk about forever and a day.
And Bright Horizons is a national company, but tell us about the presence in the Midwest and specifically in Indiana.
Sure. So we have programs that are in almost all 50 states at this point. We have programs that are, I don't know specifically how many are in Indiana, but I do have programs that are in Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Neighboring in Indiana, I also have, Bloomington, which is in like Southern Illinois. We have them in almost all 50 states. And then again, we're a multinational company. So we do have, the Netherlands, I'm sorry. We have programs in the Netherlands. We have programs that are in Australia. We have programs all over in the UK. But yes, we have programs that are all over. You can go to www.brighthorizons.com and type in your zip code, and you can find a center that is probably really close to you.
That's amazing. And we know that that's really important, that families have an opportunity to go back to school, go back to work with high quality early care and education at their fingertips.
Yes.
So what does a typical day look like for an infant or a toddler at Bright Horizons?
Oh gosh, it's going to be so different if you're an infant or a toddler, right? Because infants, we know, make their own schedule. So we cater to that. So, but they're all going to get the same learning. They're all going to get the same hands-on caring adults. They're all going to get the same engagement. Outdoor play, lots of STEM activities, lots and lots that's going to nurture those cognitive abilities as they're growing up. So our infant programs are, again, really catered for the infant. So we know they're on their own schedules for eating, for sleeping, and things like that. And we just kind of build our programming around those specific things that they need. Toddlers are a little bit more structured, right? Because we're getting a little bit older and we need a little bit more of that consistency. So it's going to be a little bit more of a structured day for them where they're going to come in, they're going to have their breakfast, they're going to go into their circle times, they're going to go into their small group activities, they're going to have that outdoor play, they're going to have that rest time, just kind of built it out so that it's going to be a little bit more structure for them, but we still do cater to the ability of the child to be self-led, right? We have these opportunities within our centers and within our classrooms for them to be able to go out, explore their own environments, go to what calls to them. We don't feel like we have to, kind of restrict our children in their exploration. We want them to be able to do that on their own. So they're going to have that ability to kind of go find and explore things that are really unique and interesting to them. And our leaders and our centers are catering to those abilities that they have.
Which is so important, right? And
Absolutely.
then I imagine, how do you communicate that to families about what's happening during their child's day?
So we have an amazing app called My Bright Day, where you're going to get some beautiful pictures of your child throughout the entire day of all the activities that they're doing. Another cool thing that I will plug about My Bright Day is that it's also building a portfolio that's going to follow your child from that infancy all the way up and through their matriculation out of the program. So it's just going to capture all of those moments, all of those learnings, all those fun and cute pictures, but also all of the developmental, assets that are coming to them as a part of the Bright Horizons family. So you're going to get those, that communication and those pictures every single day, probably every single hour, depending on the busyness of the day. But again, it's going to follow them all the way up and through the time that they graduate out and they go to their forever schools.
That's amazing. And, really such a wonderful capturing of that special time in childhood.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I find so intriguing about Bright Horizons is you have this unique arm or branch of your work that focuses on the research. How did Bright Horizons get into the business or the idea that they wanted to commission some studies?
Well, I have to give a shameless plug to Rachel Robertson, who's our chief academic officer. In the quest to nurture the whole child, understanding the development of the whole child is so important. And so we have really dove into really understanding what are the things that really go into brain development. Like I can hear her echoing in the back of my mind, thinking about brain development. And those are the things that are really important for us to immerse into our curriculum. So really understanding the ways that we're able to, not only help our children to be able to grow and be successful adults, but to also maximize their capacity with their brain development. How can we make sure that as they're growing and being a part of our programs, that they are really getting the maximum cognitive abilities that they possibly can? And so really going into the research behind brain development, behind, nurturing the whole child really does help us to build out our amazing curriculum.
I think that's a really special feature of Bright Horizons and what you've been able to do. And one of those kind of ways that you do that is through the Modern Family Index. Tell us about that that work that you do with the Modern Family Index?
So we've done some work with the Modern Family Index specifically around really understanding, what are the things that do nurture the child, really what goes into the brain development, what goes into, growing the whole child. We've also done a lot of work with the American Academy of Pediatrics and really understanding, again, the brain development, what are the things that really do help to drive a lot of the development of the whole child. And using that research, again, we're able to really understand what are the implementations, so to speak, that we're bringing into our curriculums. Things like technology. What is the technology that we're using? What are the hands-on materials that we're using with the curriculum? Those things are the things that are really helping us to, again, nurture the whole child, be able to grow the whole child, be able to make sure that we're providing the best quality care and education that we can.
So really, you're taking that research, which can sometimes be really dry and overwhelming to practitioners, but also to parents, but you're putting it into practice in ways that make sense.
Absolutely.
Can you think of an example of a hands-on activity that was born out of that research?
So we have an amazing program called Inner Explorer. And what this does is help the children to be able to really understand their own emotions and to be able to express them outwardly in a way that is healthy and in a way that is going to help them with being able to give themselves the care and the nurturing that they need. We understand that, there's so many different emotions that come into childcare and childhood. And using Inner Explorer, we're able to teach them mindfulness through yoga, through deep breathing, through different types of exercises that are teacher-led, of course, but really do help them to be able to marry their outward emotions with the ways that they're feeling on the inside. And again, that's just going to help to nurture them, help them to be able to grow, to be responsible adults. But again, it's also going to not shut down the fact that those emotions are there, they're real, they're present, and they're something that we need to help them to be able to regulate.
That's so critical, that self-regulation, and it's not something that elementary or high school teachers often think about. How did this child come into the classroom, kindergarten, second grade, seventh grade, being able to express themselves? And that all takes place in the first 1,000 days.
Absolutely. And it's not wrong, right? Like, we all have emotions. We are allowed to have big emotions. Those are a very critical and important part of our lives. They teach us about us, right? So just being able to nurture that, being able to foster that, but being able to help them to understand, how do we regulate when we're feeling these really, really big emotions that might come out and be a little bit more outwardly expressive? How do we support that is going to be huge in making sure that they are able to, kind of manage that throughout the rest of their lives.
And it really is a lifelong skill. And building that habit of mind and body connection, we know, is a really healthy strategy to have. Let's switch a little bit to talking about this most recent study that you worked on.
Sure.
And that was with the screen time.
Yes.
Something stood out to me from the report that you all put out, that children are mastering screens before they even know how to read.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. And on a recent episode of Teach, Play, Love, Rachel Robertson and Claire Goss really did dive into the ideology around screen time. And, Rachel did a really great job of really kind of itemizing the fact that there's screens and then there's the technology, right? There are the pieces that go into both. And, screens are a key part of everyone's lives now. They're not going away. But when we are introducing screen time really early on, there are some delays that might come as a result of that. There's, language that doesn't develop because we are not implementing the serve and return that can sometimes come with, not being a part of the screen time and having that adult interaction. So yes, there's a lot that goes into understanding screens and being able to implement them in a way that is a lot more healthy. It is totally possible, but there are sometimes implications that come with implementing them before the age of 18 months.
I want to go back to something you just said about serve and return. Explain that to our listeners. What do you mean when you say serve and return?
Sure. So the idea of serve and return is making sure that we are taking social cues and we're giving social cues. We're giving the opportunity for a child to be able to respond to us, and we are responding to the child in a way that has them, I always think of like open-ended questions, right? It's going to make sure that they're able to give us something back. We're embracing the idea of language. We're embracing the idea of social responsiveness and making sure that the child is able to actively respond to what you're saying. The implication that comes with screens is that there is no serve and return as a result of that, except with some programs. And we can talk a little bit more about those specific programs. But the idea is, we want to foster that interaction and that engagement that really does encourage language development, those cognitive skills really early on in youth.
And that back and forth, we know, does so much to early relational health as well. Having that bond, having that attachment, really feeling seen and heard.
Yep.
And infants know that when they're being seen and heard.
Absolutely.
Toddlers recognize when they're not getting an adult's full attention. And
Absolutely.
so developing those serve and return.
Yeah.
So tell us, what was the spark that started this study? Where was the wondering at Bright Horizons that said, let's investigate this?
Well, we get asked so many times if we implement any form of screen time in centers. Just speaking as, a practitioner, speaking as someone who is in operations and does work in the centers a lot, that is probably the number 2 question that comes up around, screen time and the use of screen time, and if children get access to screens within the centers. And just the fascination around, what is it behind the screen time? What is it around, the concerns that parents have around the screens, but also understanding what is it that, what are the benefits, right? I think it's very important to kind of marry both of those ideas. What are the implications? What are the benefits of the screen time? And again, on our quest to be able to nurture the whole child, on our quest to be able to maximize that brain and cognitive development, the research started around understanding screen time, understanding what it is that creates the implication with screen time, and, again, really understanding what is our role in that.
Mm-hmm. So break that down for us. When we talk about screen time, tell us how you defined that for the study.
So again, there's different methodologies with the screen time, right? So we can think of screen time as a FaceTime, right? Like that is something, or a Skype, or there's healthy ways to be able to think about the ways that youth and infants, toddlers engage with screens. So being able to do things like that and being able to, again, implement that serve and return with a screen is a really healthy way to be able to think about the way that we're looking at screen time. When we think about, just the programs like the Sesame Streets, when we think about the programs like Blue's Clues, when we think about different programs that really do call for that serve and return and those opportunities for the children to be able to have that critical thinking, there's that form of the screen time. But there's also screen time like the YouTubes, right, where you're sitting down and where it's just those opportunities. I heard Claire Goss talk about it as a playpen versus a playground, when we're using screen time as a method to be able to get stuff done, not necessarily having that serve and return, not necessarily building out that cognitive development, but maybe we're using it for those really short bursts of time when we just as parents need to get some things done. Mm-hmm. So those are those forms of screen time. And again, the study is really to understand what are the pieces that really enrich the growth of the youth and the development of youth, and what are the pieces that are a little bit less desirable and the ones that we want to try to minimize. And again, using the playground methodology, I'm still thinking about Claire Goss here, and thinking about the ways that we're able to use like an iPad to be able to create those moments of serve and return, those moments when we're watching those programs or when the children are watching those programs, to be able to, that call for them to think critically, that call for them to identify things. Those are the types of programs that we want to try to encourage. And the programs that are, a little bit less than that are the ones that we want to try to minimize. So again, just the study is about nurturing the whole child. Everything we do is about nurturing the whole child and understanding what are the ways that we might be able to implement screen time in an effort to do that.
That's wonderful. Today we're talking with Dr. Amber Brooks from Bright Horizons. Bright Horizons recently commissioned a study focused on the uses of screen time in early childhood care and education centers. And we're talking about the implications of that, as well as appropriate ways to use technology in classrooms, at home, and alternatives to screen time. So Amber, when I think about screen time for our littlest ones, and I have this image, I've seen it somewhere on maybe social media, of the infant swiping, right? That's it has become a real, just a movement that children are picking up on.
Right.
Did that come out in your study at all?
So more of our study was about the parents' responsiveness to this,
Wonderful.
right? So thinking about the fact that, parents were identified. So a couple of the percentages that came out from the study were about 61% of our families feel like their children are not getting enough time doing like the healthy activities, going out and playing. So as you're thinking about the swiping and, there's not a lot of engagement, there's not a lot of movement that's associated with that. 49% are worried that the stress, the mental health is going to be impacted by, the lack of that serve and return and those emotional opportunities that come out of just the actual movement and engagement with adults. So the study itself really did focus on, just a lot of the parent concern around this and a lot of the ways that we as Bright Horizons, but overall as early childhood education providers, can minimize some of the stresses, some of the anxiety that comes with the ideology around screen time.
And so what did you find? What are some of the ways that families can use technology and screens appropriately?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, togetherness, right? Like being able to sit down, doing these things together, using it as an opportunity to invoke some of that serve and return. So maybe they're watching a really engaging show. How can we as a parent now take that information and leverage it and have conversation and really build up some of those cognitive abilities that the children are getting from the program? After that, making sure that we are setting time limits for it. That is a huge, huge thing. Making sure that we're looking at the amount of time that they're spending on it, making sure that we're being monitoring of the programs that they're actually watching. There's so many ways that we can leverage that together. I think I mentioned a little bit earlier, screen time is amazing for talking to relatives. So using it as an opportunity to leverage FaceTime, leverage Skype, leverage all of these abilities that we have to be able to have conversations with grandma and grandpa and really do, again, invoke that serve and return. So there are some really fabulous ways that we can use screen time. It is not at all, a curse to have screens in your home or to be able to leverage screen time. It is more an opportunity as a parent to be able to monitor it and to be able to regulate it a little bit more.
You mentioned some specific shows. Of course, Sesame Street. We all grew up. I know I did growing up watching Sesame Street and Blue's Clues, Dora the Explorer. What are some ways that families can engage their littlest ones with those programs?
Absolutely. So again, I always recommend watching them together, right? Really take the time to understand what is the learning and the expectation of the learning that is coming out of those programs. But we always recommend it. I used to call it car chats, but even when you guys are in the car and when there's those opportunities where there's just that radio silence, have the conversations around it. Have the conversations about what did you learn or what did this teach you? What did you see? What colors did you see? Just really creating those opportunities to build out the engagement and the conversation with the children, I think is going to be huge. Those programs in and of themselves are amazing because they do a really great job of, again, building out those cognitive abilities of the children, asking them to call. They break the third wall constantly, which I love when they stop and they look directly into the cameras and they're talking directly to the children and they're asking them questions. Make sure that the children are responding. If you're watching it with your children, make sure that they're responding, re-ask the question, restate the question, and make sure that they're understanding. There are some amazing ways for us to be able to leverage technology as parents, and we shouldn't be afraid of it.
That's so true. Even some of the songs, right?
Yes.
Building those into your daily routines.
Absolutely.
The different songs that are part of the programming. Tell us a little bit about some other ways that you are incorporating screens into the classrooms, into the learning environments.
Well, I talked a little bit about Inner Explorer, which does leverage, very minimal screen time, but there are sounds that we use through the iPad. There are videos that we use to really demonstrate the way that breathing helps us in our bodies. A lot of really informational videos that really do help them, again, with understanding themselves and understanding how they're going to be able to self-regulate. Those are pretty much the extent % of what we use for our screen time right now. But again, just making sure that the children are leveraging it as an opportunity to learn about themselves and to be able to really maximize the skills that we're teaching them.
That's terrific. I know so many parents and caregivers are listening, and they're thinking, gosh, that moment when I needed to pick up the phone and I put my little one down and handed them the device in front of the screen time, right? Like that's the reality. We don't get away from that, and we know that that's happening. What is some reassurance, but also some guidance that you can give parents around those things?
Sure. So I'm going back to Claire Goss. Playpen versus playground, right? So there are going to be those moments, and we should not feel bad about them, where we have to get something done. On the podcast, Rachel talked about being on an airplane, and those moments when you just need to be there, you need to be in the moment, and sometimes having that screen is going to give us that assurance that everything is going to be okay in that moment, and we're going to be able to get through it and get it done. So making sure that in those moments we are setting some safeguards. We are making sure that we're minimizing the screen time that they're using. We're making sure that we're using a trusted program, something that we have looked at ourselves, something we've vetted, and making sure, again, just that we are setting those time limits with it. I think the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends no more than 15 minutes before they're 18 months if you have to. You really, really want to make sure that you're setting some of those boundaries with the screen time. We have amazing technology these days where you actually can go into an iPad and you can set up a time limit. So making sure that you're leveraging that technology appropriately, and making sure that, again, you're giving yourself that grace as a parent, because you have to be able to get things done. And these are things that as parents, we have all done. And it is not the end of the world if we have to do a 30-minute program versus a 15-minute program, right? But leveraging the opportunity to build out that serve and return, using the opportunity to be able to have conversation and evoke conversation is going to also support with making sure that the program is more effective with your child.
And what if parents have concerns or questions about how much their little one is spending time with screens? What resources do you recommend? Where can they go for ideas?
So again, the American Academy of Pediatrics has an immense amount of research on this. They are the ones that we really do leverage. Again, I really do recommend the Teach, Play, Love podcast that was a part of Bright Horizons that Rachel Robertson and Claire Goss did. The MFI study, there's so many different resources that can really support with the understanding of what is a healthy and safe way to implement screen time.
That's really wonderful and so helpful for families as they're
Absolutely.
heading into summer and really thinking about those times that there's a lot going on and they just need a minute.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
It's not easy to have a little one around.
It's
and
not.
A little more than one.
Yes.
As your educators probably can attest to.
That's where we come in. We're here to help.
That is terrific. So Amber, as you think about the future of technology and the future of screen time, what is a hopeful message that you can give to our families, to our educators?
That it is possible to be able to leverage screen time and implement screen time in a way that is healthy, in a way that sets boundaries, and in a way that still nurtures the growth and development of your whole child.
Is there anything else that you want to tell us about Bright Horizons or the study? What's next for the studies at Bright Horizon? Have you looked at another topic for investigation?
So at this time, we're always looking at different topics. We are, again, I love the fact that we're thinking about emotional intelligence in children. I love the fact that our curriculum world at their fingertips is always evolving around all of the information that we're gathering. We've done some really amazing work with, the pyramid model and making sure that we're really understanding, behaviors and how we're supporting behaviors. So with technology, yes, and there's always so much that's evolving around the information and the studies that we're capitalizing on.
I'll look forward to that. The pyramid model, just to clarify for our listeners, that you're talking about that social and emotional learning.
Absolutely.
And how that impacts learning it for our littlest ones.
Yep.
One thing we talk about here is the first 1,000 days, and it really does take one person who's madly crazy in love with you. And I'm wondering if that's been your experience. Obviously, maybe you can't remember that person, but maybe you can identify now as an adult. Who was that one person in your life who was just...
Oh my gosh, I've had so many different educators, but believe it or not, I can actually go back to my preschool years and think about my teacher. And while I can't remember his name, I do remember the guitar and the music and the circle times and actually being able to be in stations and picture days. I can remember so much about my individual preschool program. And I do think that it is so important to make sure that the preschool experience is one that is enjoyable for children, because again, I'm a living testament that is going to resonate with them throughout their entire life. And, as me going back and now being an educator, I want to replicate that. I want to make sure that everyone that comes into our care at Bright Horizons feels that.
And knowing that learning does really begin at birth, if not before, and that it takes all different parts of the child and the parents and wrapping our arms around all 100%. Of them. 100%. That's great. I want to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And for joining us at Building Blocks. It's the journey to 1,000 days, and there's so many wonderful programs and resources out there, and we now can include Bright Horizons as one of those wonderful resources.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Legacy Foundation is Lake County's community foundation. For over 30 years, we've partnered with donors and nonprofits, focusing on youth development, the arts, the environment, health, literacy, and other causes that matter to you. We're committed to Lake County forever. First Things First Porter County is dedicated to supporting families, healthy beginnings, and quality early learning, ensuring every Porter County baby is born prepared for a strong start in life. Learn more at firstthingspc.org.
I have a very strong connection to other students. Everyone makes an effort to help each other. I'll remember the feeling of being here, the feeling that I was a part of a family.
Additional support for Building Blocks is provided generously by Tom Sorlis and Sue Eleuterio, as well as Porter County Community Foundation, serving Porter County since 1996.
Building Blocks the Podcast is a co-production of Lakeshore Public Media and First Things First Porter County. For more information on Building Blocks, including this podcast, as well as the television show, visit lakeshorepublicmedia.org/buildingblocks.